Hi, I'm Shreyas R. Krishnan. I'm sharing my early research into print material produced by British South Asian feminist and queer groups in the UK in the 1980s and 90s. Last year, I encountered three items in a display at the Feminist Library in London. First, the cover of Mukti, which means liberation in many South Asian languages. The name and the illustration of two bangled hands clearly signaled to me, a South Asian woman, that this was for South Asian women. Next, We Are Here, Black Feminist newsletter, which carried the same illustration as Mukti. I became less sure about the South Asian-ness of this illustration. How was it related to a newsletter about Black feminism? Finally, the other issue of Black Feminist newsletter, with an illustration that looked like the Hindu deity Kali. Why did these illustrations that read as South Asian to me appear on newsletters for Black women? Why did these illustrations repeat across publications by different groups? Books on the history of British South Asian feminist and queer movements gave me an important insight. In Britain, in the 1970s and 80s, immigrants from former British colonies organized themselves under the self-identification of being politically Black. Their framework for solidarity was based on the shared root of their oppression. This unity was not only a practical strategy for activism, but was grounded in anti-imperialism and left-wing politics. For example, the Black Lesbian and Gay Center's definition listed identities that we might now call the global majority. The Gay Black group noted that Black included anyone who had been culturally and economically colonized. British South Asians were an integral part of politically Black spaces, but they found that a focus on cultural identity was also needed to dismantle the structural violence they faced from within their communities. Illustrated printed materials were probably one way for these groups in the UK to find community and organize advocacy, which means that illustrations repeating across different publications is evidence of collaboration between these different groups. This context was important to my research methodology, since much of the printed material from South Asian movements in Britain is archived under or as Black movements. It is also a useful lens to understand the dual purposes of the illustrations I found: to signal South Asian-ness to other South Asians within South Asian spaces, and to signal South Asian-ness as being a part of politically Black spaces. In my preliminary taxonomy, I organized these illustrations into 5 types. The first is the decorative border. These decorative strips of pattern act as a frame, as a separator, and sometimes to fill space. Borders often reflected regional motifs. These flyers, promoting workshops for the women in the Tower Hamlets borough, speak directly to the large Bangladeshi demographic of this area. The borders echo patterns from Bengali visual culture. Aimed at South Asian, Turkish, and Iranian women, this pamphlet utilizes a border derived from the shared visual culture of Persian and Mughal artworks. Who drew these borders? Where did they learn these designs? What memory of their part of South Asia were they articulating? The second type is South Asian art forms. This cluster pulls from textile, mural, and other visual arts traditions. Their use directly points at the different parts of South Asia that these communities migrated to Britain from. Queer groups in particular embrace South Asian art forms, producing images of queerness that seem to be a part of the subcontinent's existing visual history. Their approach to these illustrations infused new queer meaning to these traditional art forms. I linked some of these illustrations with specific projects. Shakti Khabar was the newsletter of Shakti, a South Asian lesbian and gay network. Shakti means power, Khabar means news or information. In many issues of Shakti Khabar, I found that they collaged and remixed Mughal miniature illustrations to depict scenes of queer South Asian longing and desire. Most of the illustrations I found were uncredited when published. Seeing these similar illustrations printed 5 years apart in 2 different periodicals, I wondered if they were made by the same illustrator. Shakti Khabar also used architectural elements to culturally and geographically situate illustrations of queer couples. Back to this one. A multi-armed woman with a tongue out, weapons, and a decapitated head in her hand could only be the Hindu deity Kali. She was and is often used as a symbol of women's empowerment, even outside South Asian contexts. This version, designed to resemble a textile woodblock print, was one that I almost always only found with materials by Black women and queer groups. The third type of illustration: people and figures. Mukti was a South Asian feminist magazine published by the Mukti Collective. 3 of Mukti's covers depict South Asian women and children. The most recognizable one, though, is the girl who appeared on the cover of issue 1 with her left arm raised, fist clenched. She appeared with the editorial on nearly every issue of Mukti and on most promotional material for the magazine. We know she is South Asian. I found it easy to spot South Asians illustrated amongst crowds of other politically black people. How did I know they were South Asian too? These illustrations are specific. They are not caricatures of South Asians. They are drawn with care, from faces to hairstyle to clothing. These illustrations in Mukti show South Asian women of different ages from different parts of the subcontinent doing different kinds of labor. We also see the specific kinds of sexism and racism they encountered in Britain. Mukti's illustrations focused on South Asian women normalizing their bodies being seen without shame. Shakti Kabar did something similar for illustrations of queer contemporary South Asian men, showing them in dhotis and kurtas. The fourth category is clothing and accessories as synecdoches, parts that represent the whole. A great example is the illustration from the cover of Mukti. Without the bangles, I would not have seen it and thought, that's South Asian. Similarly, Shakti Kabar's illustration of two gay South Asian men holding hands works because it turns the male gender symbol into a pair of interlocking bangles. Organization logos denoted South Asian women through bindis, jewelry, saris, salwar kameez, head covering, braids, and center-parted hair. Groups for Asian women or Black women created similar visual shorthands to connote their intersectional feminist solidarities. This kind of form simplification, where physical markers signal cultural identity, could also adapt illustrations to different contexts. By editing one figure's hair, the Mukti team repurposed an illustration featuring only Black women into one of political Black solidarity. This illustration accompanies an essay by a South Asian woman describing her job in the British Ambulance Service. It epitomizes the idea of bangles and a piece of clothing as synecdoche for a South Asian woman. We do not see the woman, but we know she is in the ambulance simply from the bangles on her hand and the dupatta or sari on the left. My final category, symbolic animals, is admittedly the smallest one. Mostly, this was a strategy used by Shakti in their flyers and in issues of Shakti Kabar. The Indian peafowl or peacock is native to the subcontinent and appears across various South Asian art forms. Shakti co-opted illustrations of the peacock, solo and in pairs, as an alternative to the patriarchal masculinity demanded of South Asian men, and as a symbol of South Asian queerness. The 5 types of illustrations I've identified in the material I've gathered may not be the actual approaches that these British South Asian groups consciously engaged in, but it provides me with a preliminary structure to organize the works I will continue to encounter as my research progresses. Thank you.